Hey guys, it's Deconic, and in this one, I will be going over the progression for the Wretched Defiler pure Spectre build that I posted yesterday, and I'll be going over it in as much detail as possible, so newer players as well as veterans can have as successful of a league start as possible while following the build. Now, I have broken up the PoBs into three for today's video. There's going to be a leveling campaign PoB, which goes from Act 1 to 10. Basically telling you where to put your points, what gems to use as the acts go on, and so on. There's going to be a low budget variant that is going to be like first thing as you're a map, you kind of swap into this and all the things to aim to have basically. And then there's going to be a mid-budget PoB which has 2 budget levels, which is going to cover pre-Doryani, mid-budget, and post-Doryani, which is also on the cheaper side before the high budget. And of course, there's the high budget variant which I posted yesterday, but I'm not going to be talking about that today because I already talked about that before. So in order, we're going to start with the leveling PoB, and for this one, there isn't much to say. It's very self-explanatory, but I will say a few things. Firstly, for newer players, you might not know this, but if you wanted to change the acts, I have set it up so the acts 1 through 5 are here. We don't have 6, 7, 8, but there are skill trees for it, so you can access them here. So even if this doesn't show 7, 8, 9, do not worry, it still shows you the skill trees. The only reason it doesn't pop up there is because I only have gem sections for 5s and 8s, and I do not have for 6, 7, 8, because you would maintain Act 5 until Act 8, and then there'll be a change, and then you maintain Act 8 until Act 10. But brief TLDR, we start off with Rolling Magma out the gates, early Prolif, then we switch to SRS with Elemental Prolif as well, and then eventually we pick up a Holy Flame Totem and Flame Wall. Now, to explain the color situation going on here, red typically means you are going to drop this gem link soon. If it's at the top half, most of the time it's after the Act 1 change or the changes line here. But if it is down here, it means it's probably after the act, or maybe after like the first quest in the next act, but you're dropping it soon in any case. Whereas with green, it means you're going to keep it. Now, this says this is green Holy Flame Totem, so that means we're going to keep the Holy Flame Totem into the second half, and then because it's red here, we're going to drop it. Now we pick up Absolution when we do get it after Ship's Graveyard, and we're going to take that into Act 2. And the same goes for Act 2. Everything is gray because we keep most of the things. Absolution shows up because we switch the support gems in between. Raise Zombie, we add a new link here. You can see, I think you can now see the idea here. Anything that shows up green, you're going to keep. Anything that shows up red will probably be dropped soon, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that about covers the leveling PoB. Just follow the tree and you'll be fine. If you're enjoying the content and you haven't already, do consider liking and subscribing, as it helps a lot with the algorithm and with our 2025 goal of getting 2,000 subs, after which I will be doing a face reveal on stream and here on YouTube. Moving on to the low budget, this is where things really start to differ. Now, the trees for the leveling and the low budget are kind of different, and what you want to do is you want to get it to the Act 10 version of the leveling, and then when you hit maps, you want to start respeccing towards this tree with gold as you get your cluster jewel. This is the most important part for the respec. I think you end up here in the Act 10 variant, and so you just want to prioritize this and then go for your extra endurance charges when you get a source of endurance charge like Enduring Composure. But I do know Enduring Composure is not like a 1C. It's not 1C. It's typically like a few chaos day 1. So that is why if you do not have Enduring Composure, you just ignore these nodes and you prioritize getting your life, your mastery for life to get you a very big life boost. On that note, you actually want to ignore life on your chest piece, and you do not want any life modifiers here, so you can benefit from the 15% increased maximum life if you have no modifiers in your body armor. Then we'll go for 6 mastery so we can get the 10% more max life, and that is why we're able to get to 4,800 max life with barely any gear. Everything here is like 1 mod. Some of these do not have, a lot of these do not have any amount of life worth given. Jinx Juju, no life, and we're still able to get 4,800 life. That is why. Ignoring the skill tree, we are going to be using a Reverberation Rod. Now, there are 2 variants for the low budget. There is the Reverberation and there's Forge Force Bearer. Now, I created Forge Frostbearer because there is demand for people who want to level as Frostbearer, and both should be competitive. If in terms of damage, the only difference is Forge Frostbearer actually has the advantage of being able to be PoB'd in terms of DPS numbers, whereas with Wretched Defilers, we can't actually PoB their damage numbers accurately. Like you can, but is it even here? It's not even. Like, this is not accurate. So I will personally be starting with Wretched Defilers with Reverberation Rod, and the reason being Reverb Rod is cheaper, and they are going to be very competitive. Here we have a very united damage front in the form of lightning damage amongst Wretched Defilers and our skeletons with a 4 blue Triads grip, that we can't really do the same thing with Forge Frostbearers without gimping our auras, like Purity of Elements, going for like green auras and stuff like that. So with that in mind, I prefer the Wretched Defiler setup, but both setups are good, and if you choose to go Forge Frostbearer, it is all good. Now, if you do not know where Forge Frostbearers spawn, they spawn in Verisium nodes for the settler mechanic. So if you get to your end game, odds are you're better off asking in global 6666 for Forge Frostbearer, and somebody will have it. But if you're playing like SSF, that is where you get them. And if you're playing SSF for Wretched Defiler, how you want to get your Wretched Defilers early on is by going to your Atlas tree, and as you progress through it, you will eventually have enough points to go invasive adversaries. The difficult and rewarding monsters in this case are T17 monsters typically. And this means your maps now have a chance of having Wretched Defiler in its Desecrate pool, or just as the monsters that spawn, which means eventually you're going to be able to raise Wretched Defilers from your maps. Now, you can also ask on global 6666 depending on how fast you are, and there might be people who have it, they might not. If I have gotten to campaign, I will likely have it, whether or not it's on global. So asking there or DMing me at the Conic in game, you can get your Wretched Defilers from me essentially. Then on to the rest of the low budget. We are using a 4 blue Triads grip to convert our melee minions damage to lightning. This allows us to have even more damage from our skeletons and raised zombies, just so they are not doing physical damage, and they can actually benefit from all the lightning scaling we are going to be scaling because of Wretched Defilers. So conductivity, wrath, etc, all lightning scaling that they can now benefit from. We're running Bones of Valor for +1 Spectre and +1 Zombie. The +1 Spectre is really important because we are trying to get to level 25 as soon as possible and on as low of a budget as possible. Level 25 is where you get your 4th raise Spectre. That is where you get it from. You want to make sure you have level 25 gem. We are getting level 25 from +1 shield, +1 boot, and I do believe we have a +1 helmet. So that is 3 levels and 2 levels coming from the Reverberation Rod to complete the level 25 raise Spectre gem. Then our most important stats, like I just said, is +1 to level of minion skills. You get that, you want to get resistances on all of these pieces of gear. Remember, body armor, you do not want life. Avoid life like the plague. But you do want your implicit ASAP because that gives you some physical damage mitigation. As well as on your helmet, you can get the same physical damage mitigation to a lesser degree. The element you choose doesn't matter all too much so long as it is phased to other elements. Then 4 blue Triads grip, you want a Jinx Juju, and this is very important, you want a Purple Stool on your mercenary. Purple Stool on your mercenary is a very big damage multiplier, so you want to 100% have it. You can have whatever else on the mercenary, it doesn't matter so long as you give him a Purple Stool. Then we have a Darkness Enthroned here, 75% increase effect, it is fine. We have a Rumi's Concoction for even more block chance when we're mapping, just for extra survivability. And then past that, Enduring Composure is very important. And aside the Enduring Composure, you want to have Life from Death coming from, not Life from Death, Blessed Rebirth coming from a medium cluster jewel. If you can get Life from Death as well, that is a bonus, but your priority on a very low budget is Blessed Rebirth. This allows you to use Vow Summon Skellies and not just have them explode to nothing the moment they spawn. And then Life from Death is really good recovery for your permanent minions when those skeletons eventually die. that more or less sums up the important aspects of the low budget. The skills section is very self-explanatory. We have Stone Golem for the increased defense and life regen and feeding frenzy. We're using Steel Skin for our defensive skill. We're using Aura's Primitive Element for ailment immunity, Tempest Shield for spell block, Wrath for flat lightning and more spell lightning damage for our specters, etc. Very straightforward stuff. Now, moving on to the medium budget. Now, like I said, on the medium budget, there are two versions. There's the default and there's the Doryani Swap. The default is already very different from the low budget, but it is when you do not have the currency for all the pieces that are required for Doryani. And I'll go over some of these when I talk about the swap. But for here, the main differences are now we are using a Rate Lord. A Rate Lord means we cannot use any non-Spectre minion, but we have 4 more Spectres, so long as you fill those abyssal sockets with jewels, ghastly eye jewels. So now we're going to have 8 Spectres. We're going to be prioritizing having 6 Wretched Defilers, a Guardian Turtle, and a Forest Warrior as our supporting Spectres. Now for the items, we are going to switch our Reverberation Rod for a +2 minion wand. This is a very budget wand. All you need is +2, and then you can benchcraft everything else on this wand. It's really not that expensive. The +2 is like the expensive part of this craft if you choose to craft it. And if you choose to buy it, you can buy non-brick bases for a few divines. Still a +1 shield. The ghastly eye jewels, which go into Rate Lord. Body armor, you can use the same one if it's decent. If it's not, get a better body armor. Again, still ignoring life. And then gloves, you want to have your base stats, potentially minion damage if you're crafting it yourself. If you're not, just get good life and good res. Boots, same thing. Movement speed, life, res. Basically a lot of space for res on this gear. Amulet stays the same, Anoint stays the same, everything else pretty much stays the same. We do use a Watcher's Eye for more PDR with just determination. Now keep in mind, this is the Watcher's Eye we're going to change. So if that Watcher Eye replacement is not something that appeals to you, then you might want to just hold off on buying this until you get to the Doryani Swap. And then we have Fortress Covenant. Enduring Composure is still the same. We switch from having the medium cluster to having a large cluster with 8 nodes, 8 passive skills, just so we can have this Enduring Composure here, same one, and a Fortress Covenant for more minion damage and block chance for our minions for more survivability. Then moving on to the Doryani Swap, which is quite the difference. It will take a lot of currency to switch, but what changes in this setup? Like I said in the previous video, to switch to Doryani, you need to convert most or all of the lightning damage you're taking to other elements, so you do not just die to lightning hits and damage over times, or dots as they call them. How are we doing this? We're using Dawnbreaker in this case to convert 20%. The most important node on this shield is the 20% lightning taken as fire. That is a macro. That is what you need. Anything else you can take variable or numbers on, but that's lightning damage taken as fire. You want to 100% have it 20%. Then we're obviously using a Doryani's. Now, because this has life, we break up the life mastery, so the skill tree is a bit different on this setup as well. Just keep that in mind. We are also going to be using a Watcher's Eye. Now, this Watcher's Eye, you can go for 2 different options. There is this option, which will be slightly more expensive, that converts 15% of cold and lightning to fire while affected by purity of fire, and fire and lightning to cold while affected by purity of ice. There's this option. This converts 30% total and completes the 50% combined with our Glorious Vanity with the Bakwa for Divine Flesh, which gets the other 50%. So that's a 100% lightning damage conversion. This is an option. Like I said, this is more expensive. Alternatively, you can go for any one of these mods isolated and instead go for a max roll. So instead of a 15%, you're going for a 20%. This then converts a total of 90% of your lightning damage to other elements, and 10% of hit, and the remaining 10% will still be mitigated by armor for hits and dots. We kind of have enough regen and leech to counter the dots, so it should be fine. But there are 2 options. One is cheaper, one is more expensive. It's up to you which one you go. Eventually, we are going to be switching to Sublime Vision for the high budget, but this is the cheaper option to just get into the Doryani and have more damage. Now, again, for minus lightning res, we are opting for Halandra touched rings, basically to get minus lightning res. That is the only stat you're looking for. You of course want positive stats other than the minus lightning res, but do not break the bank for it. You can always get upgrades later on, but the most important thing is to have the minus lightning res. Now past that, we then use an immutable force for stun and block recovery, and we use a storm shroud to get ailment immunity. We have to use a storm shroud because we are dropping our purity of elements, and we're going for purity of fire and purity of ice. These two auras allow us to use the Watcher's Eye I mentioned that has the 2 mods, but even if you drop one of those modifiers, like I said, you still run both of them for easy access to max res and elemental res. So that is why we use a storm shroud, but we still need to get to 100% chance to avoid being shocked to get completely ailment immune with this setup, which is where we get is shock avoid boots. These boots, you can easily craft them with Essence of Torment, which gets you the modifier in green, which is the big chance to avoid being shocked. That is a deafening roll. You can get up to 60%, or I think as low as 54%. And then for the remaining 40%, you want to get that with your implicits. I think it's Eta World Implicit that gets, no, I think it's Searing Exile actually that gets chance to avoid being shocked. And you just want the total of these two to equal 100% or more. If it doesn't, you need to change something, is what you can expect from crafting these boots. But with these two, you become ailment immune, and with mutable force, you become stun immune. And the moment these two are in place, you can switch from Brine King to Lunaris, and then you still have Grotcall for PDR, and you still have Lunaris for PDR, so you just get a bit more tanky to physical hits and elemental hits as well. And it also allows you to run chain maps, because chain maps are very dangerous on minion builds that do not have Lunaris and the Eat That Film upgrade, essentially. Then for the Glorious Vanity, you want to just pick up anyone that has physical damage reduction here and here. These are very easy to access nodes, so if you can get them, good. You can eventually upgrade to something that has 3 or 4 physical damage reduction mods, but starting out, you just want to have these two at the very least. Also, this is something to keep an eye out for. If you can avoid it, do not get one like this that has lightning resistance, because it is actively reducing your damage. This is, I left this in here as an example to show, do not do this. Do not have a lightning res node if you can help it. Now, if it's between having a lightning res node and not having a jewel, go for the lightning res node. It's only one, but just putting it out there, you do not want to have lightning res here. And then for skills in the Doryani Swap, there are things that change. In the pre-Doryani Swap, we're using a curse conductivity, but because now they have minus 100 and whatever lightning res or minus 200, you no longer need to reduce your lightning res any further. So I don't even think it actually works, seeing as it sets that to the value. So we're opting for a Sniper's Mark to replace that curse. And this should also be a pretty big DPS increase, because it makes them take increased damage. Then we also switch our auras like I mentioned, and we run a Vitality for even more life regen. And that about sums up the medium budget swaps. And past the Doryani Swap, that is when you want to start transitioning to your high budget setup, which then gives you a whole lot more defensives and a whole lot more offensive power. Just know it is a very expensive setup, so I felt like the Doryani Swap was very, very important, just so we can actually get the damage multi from lightning resistance and still not break the bank for it. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment section below as I read everything. And if you made it this far, do consider liking and subscribing, as it helps a lot with the algorithm. And if you haven't seen the high budget version of this build, I will be linking that at the end of this video and in the description as well. And with all that said, thank you for watching.